I'll never forget the sound of that knock. It wasn't loud or impatient, just 3 quiet taps like someone hesitating halfway through. I almost didn't hear it over the rain, but something made me pause my movie and listen. There it was again. Tap, tap, tap. I wasn't expecting anyone, especially not at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, especially not in the middle of a storm. I remember thinking, maybe it's a delivery guy with the wrong address. So I shuffled to the door, still in my sweats, and peeked through the peephole. And there she was, Mrs. Wilkins from 2 doors down. Her hair was soaked, clinging to her face. Her knuckles were white, gripping the edges of her coat like she was afraid she'd blow away. But it was her eyes that stopped me cold. Hollow, lost, like someone had turned off the lights behind them. I yanked the door open. "Mrs. Wilkins, are you okay?" She didn't answer, just stood there, trembling. The shaking that comes from deep inside, like your bones are trying to escape your skin. Rain dripped from her sleeves onto my welcome mat. Plink, plink, plink. Then she whispered 2 words I'll never forget. "He's gone." My stomach dropped, because I knew. Everyone on the block knew. Her husband, Frank, who always waved from his lawn chair and would bring in everyone's trash cans if you forgot, had been sick. But the way she said it, this wasn't the end of a long fight. This was a car skidding on ice. Sudden, brutal, no time to brace. I didn't know what to do. Do you hug someone you've only ever small-talked with at the mailbox? Do you invite them in? Say you're sorry? Every option felt wrong. So I just stood there, stupidly holding my half-eaten bag of chips, while this woman I barely knew shattered in front of me. Then she did something even stranger. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, crumpled photograph. The edges were frayed like it had been folded and unfolded 100 times. She held it out with shaking hands, and for a second, I thought she wanted me to take it. But then she turned it toward me and I saw Frank. Younger, healthier, grinning in that way he always did, like he knew a joke the rest of us didn't. He had his arm around her waist and she was laughing, head thrown back like she didn't have a care in the world. The kind of photo you take for granted until it's all you have left. "They took everything else," she said, her voice cracking. "The hospital, the funeral home, I need you to tell me if you have any pictures of him, anything at all." I blinked. "Me?" She nodded, desperate. "You have that security camera, the one that points toward the street. Frank walked past your house every morning. Maybe it caught him. Just once." My throat tightened. Because here's the thing, I did have footage. Months of it. But how do you tell a grieving widow that her husband might be trapped in some cold digital archive, reduced to pixels and timestamps? That I'd have to scroll through days and days of mundane clips, watching for a ghost in a baseball cap? I stepped aside. "Come in." She hesitated, like she wasn't sure she deserved the invitation. Then the wind howled, sending a sheet of rain sideways onto the porch, and she practically stumbled inside. I led her to my desk where my laptop sat open, screen still paused on the movie I'd been watching. Some dumb action flick. Explosions. Yelling. Suddenly it felt ridiculous. I closed it and pulled up the security app. The loading circle spun. And spun. "It might take a minute," I muttered, clicking frantically. She didn't answer. Just stood there, dripping onto my rug, staring at the screen like it held the meaning of life. The silence was suffocating. I wanted to say something. Anything, but what do you say? "Sorry your husband died. Let's see if my cheap camera caught his last steps." Finally, the footage loaded. "What day?" I started to ask, but she was already leaning forward, her finger hovering over the screen. "There," she whispered. And sure enough, there he was. Frank, walking his usual route, coffee cup in hand. The timestamp read 7:03 a.m. 2 days before he died. She let out a sound, half gasp, half sob, and then her finger trembled against the screen, hovering over Frank's frozen image. The footage was grainy, slightly blurred by the early morning light, but there was no mistaking him. His worn-out baseball cap, the way he always lifted his coffee cup slightly as he walked, like he was toasting the sunrise. "That's him," she whispered. "That's him." I expected her to cry, to collapse, to something. But she just stood there perfectly still, as if breathing too hard might make the video disappear. Then, without warning, she reached out and touched the screen. Just one fingertip right where his face should have been. Can you play it?" I hit the arrow key. The video lurched forward. For 3 seconds, everything was normal. Frank walking, birds chirping somewhere off camera, a car passes by in the background. Then, a sharp gasp from Mrs. Wilkins. Stop, go back. I rewound, played it again. There, right there. She pointed, her voice urgent. Do you see it? I squinted. See what? His hand. And then I noticed it. Halfway through the clip, just for a split second, Frank's free hand, the one not holding coffee, drifted up to his chest. He rubbed it absently like he was brushing away a crumb. Then he winced. Just a flicker. If you weren't looking for it, you'd miss it. Mrs. Wilkins' breath came faster now. That's when it started. The pain. He told me later it felt like a fist squeezing his heart, but Her voice broke. He laughed it off. Said it was just indigestion. That he couldn't miss his morning walk. The video kept playing. Frank moved out of frame, vanishing toward the edge of the screen. The timestamp ticked over 7:04 a.m. She slammed my laptop shut. The sound made me jump. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only noise was the rain still hammering against the windows. Then, very quietly, she said, I yelled at him that morning. Her hands clenched into fists. He forgot to take out the trash again, and A ragged inhale. I told him he was careless, that he never thought about me. The air in the room turned heavy. I didn't know where to look. He died 12 hours later. Her voice was flat now, empty. And the last thing I ever said to him was that he didn't love me enough. I opened my mouth, closed it. What could I possibly say? That it wasn't her fault? That Frank knows she loved him? Those were the lines people spouted in movies, but here, in this dim room with the storm raging outside, they felt cheap, hollow. Instead, I did the only thing that felt right. I pulled up the security app again. Let's find more. Her head snapped up. What? There's gotta be other clips. Dozens of them. Maybe even... I hesitated. Maybe even from that day. The last day. She went pale. You'd do that? I didn't answer. Just clicked back to the main menu and started scrolling. Because sometimes the only way to face the truth is to see it staring back at you in pixels and shadows. And that's when we found it. The screen flickered as I scrolled through the dates, each click taking us further back in time. Mrs. Wilkins hovered behind me, her breath shallow and uneven. The cursor landed on the last day Frank was alive. This is it, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I hit play. The footage loaded in fragments, choppy, glitchy, like the camera itself was struggling to remember. And then, there he was. Frank, walking slower than usual, his shoulders slightly hunched. No coffee cup this time. No cheerful wave at the neighbor's dog like he always did. Just one hand pressed against his ribs, his steps careful, measured. Mrs. Wilkins made a small, wounded noise in the back of her throat. He was already in pain, she said. He shouldn't have been out there. The timestamp read 6:58 a.m., earlier than usual. The sky was still dark, the streetlights casting long shadows. Frank paused halfway down the sidewalk, bracing himself against a tree. Just for a second, just long enough for my stomach to knot. Then he straightened up like he'd caught himself doing something wrong and kept walking. Where was he going? I asked before I could stop myself. Mrs. Wilkins didn't answer at first. Then, barely audible, the pharmacy. He said he was getting antacids. A lie. We both knew it now. The video jumped, a gap in the footage. When it resumed, Frank was gone. Just an empty sidewalk. The time now is 7:12 a.m. Wait, where did he... I frantically scrolled forward, searching for his return. But the next clip was hours later. A mail truck. A kid on a bike. No Frank. Mrs. Wilkins swayed on her feet. He never came back that way. I pulled up the front door camera, scrolled to the same time frame. Nothing. Just static. Then at 9:37 a.m., a blur of motion, Mrs. Wilkins herself running out of the house, keys in hand, her face a mask of panic. She covered her mouth. That's when they called me. When they said he... The video cut out again. I wanted to stop. Every instinct screamed to close the laptop, to spare her this. But her hand clamped down on my wrist, her grip desperate. Keep going, so I did. I pulled up the last piece of footage. The alley camera, the one that pointed toward the back parking lot. The timestamp was wrong, frozen at midnight, but the date was correct. The image was darker here and the angle was awkward. At first, all I saw were dumpsters, then movement. A figure slumped against the brick wall. Frank. Mrs. Wilkins let out a choked cry. He was on the ground, one arm curled around his middle, the other fumbling with his phone. The screen lit up his face in jagged bursts, dialing, waiting, dialing again. His lips moved, but there was no sound. No way to know if anyone answered. Then suddenly he went very still. His phone slipped from his fingers. The screen cracked against the pavement, the light blinking once before going dark. The footage skipped. When it returned, the alley was empty. Just like that. Mrs. Wilkins made a sound I'll never forget, half scream, half howl, and then her knees gave out. I caught her just before she hit the floor, her whole body shaking, her fists clenched in my shirt. "He was alone," she gasped. "He was alone and I wasn't there." I held on tighter, because what else could I do? The video kept playing on loop behind us, silent and relentless, showing the same empty alley over and over and over. Mrs. Wilkins's sobs filled the room, raw and guttural. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deeper than lungs. I just held on, my arms locked around her shoulders, both of us kneeling on the floor like survivors of some invisible wreckage. The laptop screen still glowed behind us, that empty alley footage looping silently. Then, a flicker. I almost missed it. Just a single frame, a blink and you lose it distortion in the video. But something about it made my skin prickle. "Wait," I said, gently disentangling myself. "Wait, go back." Mrs. Wilkins looked up, her face streaked with tears. "What?" I rewound the footage, played it again. "Frank is in the alley." His phone was falling. The screen is going black. Then, there, right before the video cut to an empty alley again, a shadow moved near the dumpster. Not Frank. Something else. Taller. Thinner. Just standing there, barely in frame. Mrs. Wilkins went rigid. "Who is that?" I zoomed in. The image was pixelated, but the shape was unmistakable. A person. Watching. Not helping. Just standing. My throat went dry. "I don't know." She grabbed the laptop, her fingers smearing the screen. "Play it again, slower." I did. This time we saw it. As Frank slumped forward, the figure took a single step toward him. Then, as if thinking better of it, he stepped back into the shadows. The footage cut out a second later. Mrs. Wilkins made a sound like she'd been punched. They just left him there. The room suddenly felt too cold, too quiet. Even the rain had stopped, leaving behind a sick, damp stillness. I pulled up the file properties, my hands shaking now, too. "This camera, it's motion activated. It shouldn't have gaps unless someone tampered with it," she finished. Our eyes met. A silent understanding passed between us. This wasn't just grief anymore. This was something else. Something darker. I clicked through every angle, every camera, searching for that figure again. Nothing. Just empty sidewalks, oblivious neighbors, like a ghost had slipped through and vanished. Then Mrs. Wilkins went very still. "The pharmacy," she whispered. "What about it?" She turned to me, her eyes wide. "Frank's wallet. When they brought me his things, it was missing." A beat of silence. I pulled up the footage from the pharmacy's exterior camera, the one that pointed to the parking lot. The timestamp matched Frank's last moments. The video loaded, and there he was, Frank walking toward the building, one hand clutching his chest. The automatic doors slid open. He stepped inside. Then, the pharmacy footage stuttered, a half-second gap. Then Frank reappeared, staggering back out through the automatic doors. His face was ashen, one hand pressed to his chest, the other clutching a small white bag. Mrs. Wilkins made a strangled noise. "He got the medicine." But something was wrong. Frank wasn't heading home. He was moving fast, too fast for a man in pain, cutting across the parking lot toward the alley, toward where we knew he'd collapse. Then, just before he disappeared from frame, he glanced back over his shoulder. A chill shot down my spine. "He was looking at someone," Mrs. Wilkins whispered. I hammered the arrow keys, rewinding frame by frame. There, in the pharmacy window, a blurry silhouette. "Someone is watching Frank leave. Can you zoom in?" Her voice was razor sharp now. I tried. The pixels exploded into meaningless squares. But the shape was tall, broad-shouldered, and as we watched, the figure turned away, deliberately avoiding the camera. Mrs. Wilkins' nails dug into my arm. "That's not the pharmacist." A new video file auto-played, the pharmacy's interior camera. Timestamp, 6:59 a.m. Frank was at the counter, leaning heavily. The pharmacist, an older woman with gray curls, frowned, reaching for the phone. But Frank waved her off, pulling out his wallet. Then, a man entered the frame from the left. Mrs. Wilkins gasped. He was huge, easily 6'4". Dark hoodie pulled up despite the summer heat. He didn't approach the counter, just lingered by the cold medicine aisle, watching Frank's reflection in the glass display case. Frank stiffened. His hand froze mid-reach for his credit card. The pharmacist said something, but Frank wasn't listening anymore. His shoulders hunched, like a prey animal sensing a predator. The hooded man took one step forward. Frank grabbed his bag without waiting for change and bolted for the door. The footage jumped again, another infuriating gap. When it resumed, the hooded man was gone. The pharmacist stood frozen behind the counter, her mouth slightly open. Mrs. Wilkins shot to her feet. "They have more! They have to!" I was already pulling up the parking lot camera's full archive. That's when we saw it, a black SUV peeling out seconds after Frank fled into the alley. No plates, tinted windows, and dangling from the rearview mirror, a faded green air freshener shaped like a four-leaf clover. Mrs. Wilkins went deathly still. "Oh, God." "What?" She turned to me, her face bloodless. "Frank's brother." The words hung in the air like poison. They hadn't spoken in years, not since... She swallowed hard. Not since the life insurance policy. A car door slammed outside. We both jumped. Mrs. Wilkins' head snapped toward the window. Was that... Then the doorbell rang.